though he fought fiercely until the end, fatally striking one of the rebels with his own severed leg, according to one rather fanciful account.
What the hell? What? Right, early Muslim expansion. Season 3. Season 3. I thought the last season was the last
in
season.
In the first half of the 7th century,
didn't know there was
Caliphate burst out of the Arabian Peninsula,
but hey, good for me.
Both the Eastern Roman and Sassanid empires in a series of decisive battles, shocking the ancient world and changing the status quo of the region forever. In our previous 2 videos on early Muslim expansion, we described these events in detail. By the middle of the century, the conquests continued, but the cracks started to show. In this episode, we will talk both about these conquests that brought the Caliphate to its largest extent, from France to Central Asia, and the internal strife that first ended the Rashidun Caliphate, bringing the Umayyad dynasty to power and starting early sectarian divisions, weakening the Umayyads in the process. Welcome to the 3rd long-form video in our series on the early Muslim expansion. These long videos are difficult to make and the algorithm is currently unkind, so we ask for your support to continue producing our videos. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Initially, the reign of Caliph Uthman ibn Affan was a time of progress for the growing Rashidun Caliphate. The governor of Egypt, Abdullah ibn Sa'ad, had used the new standing navy of the Caliphate to secure a steady tribute from the island of Cyprus in 649. Before defeating the Eastern Romans at sea in the Battle of the Masts. Meanwhile, the advancing armies of Anaf ibn Qais and Abdullah ibn Amr were making further headway into the rapidly crumbling Sassanid Empire. Yazdegerd III, last of the Persian King of Kings, had been reduced to little more than a fugitive, fleeing from city to city ahead of the conquerors. After the fall of Fars province between 649 and 650, attempts to raise support in first Kerman and then Sekistan each failed, with the governors of these provinces refusing to pay taxes to a destitute and powerless emperor or harbour him from the advancing Arabs. Finally withdrawing to Merv, he made a last-ditch effort to stem the tide by appealing to his allies among the Hephthalite principalities.
Ooh, Hephthalite. I haven't heard about that since I reacted to them. Oh, they were around in this period.
Were indeed sent to support him, but they would never see battle against the Arabs. Unwilling to continue throwing away lives in a hopeless war after the desertion or surrender of Yazdegerd's vassals, his last general Farrukhzad abandoned him in 651, with Merv's governor Mahuisuri turning against him as well shortly after.
Oh man.
With his last supporters defeated by Suri's own Hephthalite allies, the King of Kings finally met his end, hiding in the home of a humble miller outside Merv, murdered for his jewelry. While local resistance
That's sad. That's heartbreaking. That's low-key heartbreaking. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. Like, what did bro do to deserve this, bro? Like, and like all of a sudden, an outside foreign force came and just completely wrecked his homeland, made him a fugitive. Just, I mean, Persia didn't even care about Arabia. And they just came and straight up invaded his homeland. Oh, that's so sad, man. Like, what the heck?
Would continue into Baristan for years to follow. The once great Sassanid Empire had ceased to exist, its dynasty continuing only through a family of exiles taking refuge in China. But for all the military victories of the Caliphate during Uthman's 12-year reign,
I cannot believe it's gone. It's gone. It's green now.
Policies would soon beget internal turmoil for the young and rapidly expanding state. The aging caliph's nepotism and unpopular economic policies created growing opposition to his rule from various strands of society. During Umar's reign, laws had been set in place forbidding Arab soldiers from buying land in conquered territories, keeping soldiers strictly separated from local populations, both to prevent foreign influences on the faith of his victorious armies and to protect the property of the conquered. Under Uthman, these restrictions were removed, causing many soldiers in the Caliphate's armies to buy up huge tracts of land in Syria and Iraq, in some cases abusing their power and authority in order to drive inhabitants out and resell the same land at large profits, creating a new class of wealthy ex-soldiers establishing lavish estates across the Caliphate. This new taste for luxury among the conquerors drove up taxes and created great resentment among both non-Muslims and non-Arab converts.
What's going on here? You already know what I'm about to bring up, right? Again, this is what colonial power does, right? I mean, guys, I bring this up a lot because I always see my Muslim/Arab viewers, they like to paint the first caliphate as sunshine and rainbows, and that there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, right? I say this in every single video that I do where I pinpoint something that was wrong, right? Like this, okay? Because it's necessary. It's quite frankly speaking, it's necessary to point out, because any type of history being distorted, I don't tolerate. I don't tolerate that. Any type of history that's being distorted just to for any means, like political means or like cherry picking me, like, I don't tolerate that. History needs to be taught as is. Okay? And the Rashidun Caliphate was very much a colonial empire that did what colonial empires do. That is how it is. That's what it should be taught as is. Like, it wasn't no sunshine, rainbows, like, at least not all the time anyways. So again, if things are sunshine and rainbows, in fact, let's go back real quick. Let's go back and review this real quick, right? So the first caliph, soldiers were forbidden to buy, conquer lands, prevent foreign influence on the faith, protect property of the... Okay. Now, the issue with this, right, is when you have a dynasty, and this is why it's like, yeah, sure, the first caliph, Umar, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. I'm just going to say Caliph Umar. What he did was good. But the problem with a colonial empire that's a dynasty is your successor could easily just reverse every single thing, every single law or act or rule by the previous person in power. So basically, if you are basically conquered by a colonial empire, you are basically at the mercy of said colonial empire. So it's still not really sunshine and rainbows, even if it's not sunshine and rainbows just yet, right? The same could be said with my country as well, frankly speaking, because people tend to distort history of my country as well. And before you start skipping, even though this is supposed to be a reaction where I bring up stuff from my perspective, which I will obviously bring up my country to talk about my perspective. Anyways, I say that because people like to skip parts where I do that. I'm like, why are you watching a reaction video if you're going to skip? But whatever. Like I said, I just use those people for views and ad revenue. The people who are actually intellectual, who actually have a mind to hear out history, this is for you. This is for you to hear. But like my country, for example, when it was first colonized, right? At first, slavery was not as bad. For the first couple decades, it was not as bad, right? And that's going to sound insane, but that is true. Objectively speaking, when the first slaves arrived, they were not like worked to death or anything. They were simply just used as laborers. Now, it wasn't until the English found out that the place had extremely good soil for sugar that rich people started to buy out more and more and more of the land. Basically, rich elite. Okay, because black people also own slaves too. The rich elite started buying all this land, forcing more people out, in a nutshell. And that's when things got bad, right? Because now in their brain, all they cared about was profit, 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 profit. That's when things got bad. So before, originally, it was not bad, but then it got bad. And then it would eventually slowly start to revert and not be bad, right? So yeah, this is the problem. Like, this is why, you know, colonial powers, like back then, right? It's like a colonial power it's still a colonial power regardless. I mean, especially back then, I should say, you know, things could change a lot, right? So, you know, I just want to draw that parallel here, okay? All right, let's continue. But you can argue. Now, I will play devil's advocate, and I will say you can't argue that, okay, well, this is just a one person, right? This is just one caliph who did that, who did those bad policies that nobody didn't like. So that doesn't mean the whole caliphate was like that, right? That doesn't mean that was the whole purpose of the caliphate. You could say that, right? And you know what? You could. That's a valid point. But if you will say that, don't be a hypocrite and then type in my comments some rubbish about, oh, slavery, blah, 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 like something relating to slavery on my country. Because that's what I tell people as well. I look at people, I tell people, dude, you realize that slavery wasn't really a British thing. It was more of a elite, capitalist, rich people thing. So, again, this is why I draw these parallels, right? This is why I say, like, hear me out for a second. Because it makes sense. Because I see people do this all the time in my comments where they do that. And then they essentially, like, just hypocrisy at its finest in layman's terms.
On top of economic friction, Uthman also created for himself a theological controversy through his creation of a unified official version of the Quran. Prior to this, the ad hoc nature by which the Prophet's revelations were recorded and transmitted by his closest companions meant that many Qurans had minor variations in the text from one to the next, undermining a faith based on an eternal and infallible word of God.
Before Uthman, it was the difference was that okay. So hold on a second. I was under the impression that the Quran never changed. There was no variation in the Quran. Many people in my comments told me that the Quran never changed. But yeah, I'm hearing that the Quran had different variations. I need an explanation on that in my comments.
To correct this, Uthman had a gathering of religious scholars determine the canon account of the Prophet's words, gathering and burning as many of the variant Qurans as possible.
Okay, I actually heard of this. Okay, so I actually did hear before that the Quran actually indeed was changed, but plenty of times actually, but that all the different other versions of the Quran were burnt. So the Quran that we have today might not even be the original. So I've heard. I've heard something about many types of Qurans being burned, but I didn't know how true it was. So I never really like brought it up on my video. But okay, that's actually I need some explanations on this, because I was really under the impression that the Quran was this pure document that just never ever changed, had no outside influence for a while. seems like all the people who told me that in the comments completely contradict themselves here.
The Quran of Uthman remains unchanged as the holy text for Muslims around the world today. But during his reign, some Muslims disagreed with the decisions Uthman's scholars reached, or saw the destruction of any Quran as sacrilegious, adding their voices to the growing opposition to his rule.
So there were literally other Qurans, unironically, that we will never, bro. So how the hell do we know that his Quran is the right one? What?
The long simmering resentment against Caliph Uthman boiled into open rebellion in 656. In Egypt, Kufr and Basra, disaffected soldiers from local garrison towns gathered and marched on Medina to demand Uthman's deposition and the election of a new caliph. Having been told by agents that the grievances against him were frivolous and a revolt unlikely, Uthman was caught unprepared when the bands of soldiers converged on Medina. Though he refused to step down as caliph, Uthman attempted to reach a peaceful settlement, sending Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's son-in-law and one of the first Muslims, to negotiate with the rebels on his behalf. The smaller Kufan and Basran detachments were convinced to make peace with Uthman, while the larger Egyptian force was mollified with a promise to remove their unpopular governor Abdullah from governorship in favor of Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, the son of the first caliph. With Ali as guarantee of the agreement and Ibn Abi Bakr leading them, they began their return to Egypt, apparently ending the immediate danger for Uthman. But on their return journey, the soldiers waylaid a messenger bound for Egypt with orders to have the rebel leaders executed. Taking it as a sign of treachery on Uthman, the returned to Medina and surrounded Uthman's home, besieging him within, and once again demanded his resignation. Whether Uthman really ordered the rebels executed is unclear, with most accounts crediting the message not to Uthman but to his cousin and secretary, the future caliph Marwan ibn al-Hakam. Whatever the truth of the matter, the rebels cut off water to Uthman's house and gave increasingly threatening demands for his abdication, until one of Marwan's servants slew one of the rebel spokesmen with a stone from the balcony on June 16th, making it—
What? Oh shoot! Oh, that aim must be insane, bro!
Bloody end to the affair, all but inevitable.
Holy!
Abandoned by most of his
Umayyad
Umayyad
detail.
clan.
Dude, holy crap. Look, this is something that I forgot to point out. I like this. This animation right here and the detail and the graphics, this is actually quite cool.
With the Iraqi rebels and notables of Medina remaining neutral, Uthman ordered his remaining defenders to stand down in hopes of avoiding bloodshed between Muslims when the rebels attacked the house the following day. Regardless, Marwan and the children of Ali refused this order and attempted to save the life of their caliph. As Uthman sat for his noon prayers, Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr and a few of the Egyptian rebels climbed into his home from the roof of a neighboring house, threatening the caliph at sword point. Though accounts differ on the specific events,
okay, so they didn't—
Abi Bakr's role in particular, the final outcome was the same.
Uthman
was the first caliph to be murdered by his fellow Muslims, an event that would shake the Muslim world to its core.
And thus, it begins where Muslims would, do that over and 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 over all across the Middle East.
Following the murder, the rebel bands effectively controlled Medina, and under their influence, particularly the Iraqis, Ali was elevated to the role of caliph. As the Prophet's son-in-law and one of the major candidates in the previous election, Ali seemed a safe and popular choice. However, his reign would be saddled with the scandal of Uthman's murder, and demands for justice placed the new caliph in a difficult position.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just do nothing about that.
And the injuries his own son Hassan suffered in Uthman's defense, it is incredibly unlikely he had any role in his predecessor's murder. But many of the rebels who had opposed Uthman were now his most important supporters, so punishing them would have alienated his power base and potentially led to his own demise. Stuck in a trap, Ali allowed Uthman's murder to go unpunished, which led to accusations of weakness and complicity, particularly from Uthman's powerful Umayyad clan, laying the groundwork for the First Islamic Civil War. The first stirrings of conflict came from Talha ibn Ubaydullah and Zubair ibn al-Awwam, Ali's main competitors in the election that had brought him to the throne. In the past, the two had fought alongside Ali as comrades. But despite Talha's own previous opposition to Uthman, they had been among the most vocal for action against the rebels, and were quick to make common cause with another of Ali's detractors, Aisha, the widow of the Prophet himself.
Oh, bro. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. Oh, hell no. I can already hear it. I can already hear the comments. I can already hear the people. Bro, I see these comments, like, here and there. It's that people don't see the comments because YouTube has hide it. And by the time I check on my hidden comments, on, like, censored comments, I approve them. It's like my videos are already, like, has been watched by, you know, its audience. But yeah, I get these comments, bro, like, where people, I can't say it because freaking YouTube will censor this video, demonetize this video, but they always bring out Prophet Muhammad, Aisha, and basically, like, haters of Islam. I can't say, like, I want to say some of the, but I can't say it because it's like really bad that it'll get, like, this video demonetized. But you know, like, people already see it because usually those comments come about later, like when the video is, like, out for like a good 2 weeks, right? So nobody doesn't really see it. But trust me, if you go check out some of my Muslim videos, if you go search through a lot of the comments, you will see some of those comments. So oh my goodness, I can smell the comments, dude. Holy moly, bro.
Spiritual figurehead of the rebellion, funding from numerous Umayyad governors deposed by Ali at the beginning of his reign, and several prominent Muslim leaders, including Marwan and the murdered caliph's son, Aban ibn Uthman, flocking to her banner, Aisha's rebel army represented a significant challenge to Ali's leadership. Unfortunately for the so-called Mother of the Faithful, a number of crucial mistakes would undermine her cause. A great deal of effort was wasted trying to rally support in Iraq, despite most of the region being loyal to Ali. Then, when rebel leadership left Mecca to gain support in Basra in mid-October 656, internal discord fomented within their cause. Talha and Zubair were jockeying against each other for authority, while the secrecy of the army's destination created resentment from Marwan and the Umayyad clansmen within the army, who saw the insurgency more as a blood feud than a rebellion, and would have preferred to simply march to Medina and execute the conspirators who had slain Uthman, rather than waging a campaign to topple Ali. The anti-Ali movement was dealt another blow in December, when Aisha and her followers arrived in Basra. After hearing the speeches and calls to arms of Zubair and Talha in the marketplace outside the city, the reaction of the Basran populace was divided, with some offering support, while others denounced her. The first fighting of her rebellion occurred immediately after, when numerous market-goers loyal to Aisha or Ali began to scrap in the marketplace and strike each other with the soles of their shoes. More important than any marketplace
What? Dude, what? You were literally just fine like 5 minutes ago. Now you're just fighting each other. What the heck?
Brawl, however, was the response of Basra's governor, Uthman ibn Hanif, who remained loyal to Ali. However, reluctant to bring bloodshed to his city, he allowed the rebels to camp the night while he waited for word from Ali, who was now on his way from Medina. A message from the Caliph soon arrived, instructing Ibn Hanif to give the rebels an ultimatum of loyalty to Ali or warfare. But by then, Aisha's army had already managed to entrench themselves in a defensible camp near the local garrison's storehouse. It should be noted that even after Caliph Uthman's murder, the thought of outright warfare between Muslims remained almost unthinkable to most, and so the prominent poet and scholar Salim ibn Amr al-Duwali was sent to make a lasting treaty for peace and to end the rebellion. When it was refused, Basra's cavalry commander Hukaym ibn Jabala stormed out with the governor's local forces. A short and bloody battle around Aisha's camp ensued. Many on both sides died, but the rebels were not dislodged. Afterwards, an uneasy ceasefire was signed, intended to last until Ali's arrival. The ceasefire would be short-lived, however. If Aisha remained unwilling to submit, Ali's arrival would only leave the rebels hopelessly outnumbered. So on Talha's advice, a party of rebels captured the Basran governor in a surprise raid as he led the evening's prayers in the mosque, giving him 40 lashes and plucking his beard and eyelashes before imprisoning him.
Bro, what?
The following morning, Zubayr's son
Abdallah
led the rebels in an attack on the storehouse, killing 40 converted ex-slaves from Sind who had been posted as guards, and seizing the grain meant for the townfolk's winter provisions. Hukaym arrived shortly after in a great rage, demanding Abdallah release the governor and berating him for the killing of Muslims innocent of any role in Uthman's murder. When Abdallah refused, Hukaym attacked with the 700 men still with him, finding himself quickly surrounded and overwhelmed by the larger rebel army. Though he fought fiercely until the end, fatally striking one of the rebels with his own severed leg, according to one rather fanciful account.
What the hell? What? What? Nah, this one is giving me too much. How do you unalive someone with a severed leg,
Hukaym,
bro?
His son, and many of his soldiers were killed, with the rest fleeing or surrendering, and leaving the rebels in full control of Basra.
So, quick question: how old was Aisha at this point? How old was she at this point? The reason why I didn't talk about Aisha, right, is because I feel like that's a red line that I can't cross on that channel. That's a red line that I can't really talk about because people. I'm gonna be honest with you. A lot of y'all people, really and truly, y'all not ready to hear that. Y'all just not ready for that. Y'all not ready for that talk. Because I have my own personal opinion of the whole Muhammad Aisha thing, and you neurotypical people, this is something that I've come to realize, right? Neurotypical people, you can't really like get deep with them. You can't, right? Because they just rely on emotions and shock and feelings, and they don't look at things objectively, basically, right? I looked at the whole Muhammad Aisha thing objectively, and I was like, okay, well, times were different, I mean, like, a 19-year-old, 18-year-old, 17-year-old acts like a freaking child today, which is something that should not be. We have 20-year-olds acting like children today. We have grown people acting like children. Some people die acting like kids. Guys, I know someone who works with people, dying people, and they literally told me, I'm not going to say the name of the person, of course, because, technically by law, you can't really like reveal stuff about people and on their deathbed and whatnot, even though, well, it can't be specific, but just for the sake of safety. But I know someone who works with dying people, and they literally told me, like, these people act like kids, like unironically, like till they die. A lot of these people, guys, what I'm saying is a lot of people don't mature, right? A lot of people do not mature. Okay, it's like you people have a mentality of a freaking 8-year-old or 8-year-old in the 21st century. How an our 8-year-old would act in the 21st century. Guys, times are different. So it's like, this is like 1,200 years ago. Like, really and truly, the way how people mature could have been so much more different back then. And plus, people were subjected to much more harsher conditions that usually they tend to mature faster. So, but the whole reason why I'm not really talking about the whole Aisha thing, even though I basically gave you hint on how I feel about that, is you can't talk about this type of stuff with neurotypical people. I said that before, but you just cannot. There are just so many things you just can't talk with neurotypical people, because they'll be like, because like their neurotypical brains just are not hardwired enough to actually like sit down and just think like, wait a minute, let me look at this in a more objective way. No, it's just, whoa, how could you, like, seriously, most people are like that. Some of you people are like that watch my video. Not even some, I would say most of my subscribers and audience are like that. Seriously, I would go that far. Whenever I check my audience retention on my videos, every single time I pause video and I actually like talk about something actually relevant to the video, a good 50%, 15%, or like half of the viewers skip. They don't sit there and listen. That's my point. Neurotypical people, like those neurotypical people, their brains is like, oh, they just want to see the video. They're not here to actually sit down, like, you know, hear things out objectively, you know, hear what people have to say. No, they just want to see, oh, cool reaction, oh, shock value, oh, epic moment. Seriously. So, you know, it's like, in layman's terms, I'm basically saying that most of you people are intellectually inferior to the point where you can't really talk about things like that because you people aren't intellectually capable. You're just not capable of physically talking about something like this, that you just can't. You genuinely cannot talk about something like this, right? It's like a person who's blind trying to see. Like, bro, you can't see, you're blind. Like, just stop trying to see. It is what it is. You know, and I'm sure that many of you who are also on the intellectual superior side of things, because guys, intellectual inferiority is very much a real thing. It's very much a real thing. But I'm sure some of you who are neurodivergent, or maybe just on the intellectual superior side of things, you very much understand what the hell I'm talking about. So
with Ali en route, the victorious rebels had little time to gather support for their movement. Though control of the city and its treasury brought most of the surrounding tribes at least nominally under Aisha's banner, emissaries sent north to Kufa had less success. While the province's governor, Abu Musa ibn Ashari, attempted to remain neutral, Kufan notable Zaid ibn Suhan, after receiving a message from Aisha fondly addressing him as a beloved son, as befitting her title of Mother of the Faith, responded that her beloved son would prefer her to stay safely at home. Ali's efforts were more fruitful. Sending his son Al-Hassan to Kufa, Abu Musa was soon deposed, and more than 6,000 men were gathered for the retaking of Basra. With these joining Ali's 700 from Medina, and close to 2,000 who had gathered from various tribes along the caravan route, Ali arrived at Basra on December 5th with just under 10,000 men, met by Aisha's comparable army of Basrans and Meccans. After 3 days of standoff and attempts to sway the Basran tribes, a horseman was sent between the armies by Ali with a Quran at the end of his lance to exhort both sides to an honourable combat. When he fell dead, pierced by arrows, battle was joined, and the two cavalry-heavy armies came crashing together like thunder. Despite Aisha having, by most accounts, at least as large an army as Ali prior to his arrival, defections of several Basran tribes, both before and during the battle, weakened her force significantly. In the center of Ali's army, Abu Qatada al-Numan led the Kufan foot soldiers, while Ali's son, Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, carried his father's standard. On the right wing of Ali's army, Malik al-Ashtar led the bulk of the Kufan cavalry, soon routing the tribesmen of the Banu Hanzala leading Aisha's left. And on Ali's left, the storied companion Ammar ibn Yasir is said by some to have driven Zubayr, who had been given overall command of the rebel army, to abandon his army and leave without fighting. Zubayr's desertion is a matter of some mystery. Despite his past victories and talent as a commander, all accounts agree he abandoned his army and retreated very early in the battle, though there are a variety of reasons given. Some suggest that secret correspondence from Ali convinced him he had taken the wrong path, or that the Prophet had once said that Ammar would die at the hands of a band of wicked men, leading Zubayr to question his role when the two came face to face on the battlefield. Others point to Aisha's refusal to acclaim him as caliph on the eve of the battle, suggesting that she favored Talha and that Zubayr's role in the rebellion had been a self-serving grab for the throne. Either way, his desertion left Talha to take command of a rapidly worsening situation. Leading a strong force of Basran cavalry, he made a number of charges against Ali's left and center, at first with great success. But once Ali's right wing punched through his lines, he found his mobile cavalry bogged down and risking envelopment. Turning about to withdraw and regroup for another charge, he was mortally wounded by an arrow to the back of his knee, not at the hands of Ali's forces, but of his supposed ally Marwan, apparently as a spiteful act of vengeance for Talha's opposition to Uthman now that their alliance to punish Ali and Uthman's murderers had come to naught. After firing the treacherous shot, Marwan was taken prisoner by Ali's victorious forces, while Aisha's leaderless forces collapsed. Named the Battle of the Camel after the camel Aisha had observed her defeat from the back of, this climactic battle in Basra had ended the first major challenge to Ali's caliphate, though further conflict remained ahead. Various figures are given for the casualties, with generally accepted figures hovering around 400 for Ali's army and 2,500 for Aisha's, the latter number being particularly high given that Ali pardoned all but one of the prisoners taken after the battle, but still plausible given the accounts of many rebels fighting on long after the army had fallen into disarray and defeat out of zealous devotion to Aisha. Of the three rebel leaders, only Aisha survived the battle and its aftermath, being escorted back to Medina by her brother Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, where she would live her days out in comfort, but with her political activity greatly curtailed. Zubayr was found shortly after the battle's end by a trio of tribesmen and murdered while apparently trying to escape to his ally Muawiyah, the governor of Syria. At its foundation, the caliphate had been ruled and organized largely through the consensus of the companions in Medina, but for all Uthman's merits, his reign brought a definite shift away from the ideals of justice and Islamic unity the early caliphate inherited from the Prophet. In pre-Islamic Arabia, life had been divided sharply along clan lines, but under the caliphs Abu Bakr and...
Hold on a second. Is this the... Okay, hold on a second. Okay, this is where I end things off. Okay. We're gonna continue. Season 3 looks like it's gonna be freaking awesome. This is where things are getting really good. Although, I mean, season 2 is actually quite good. But season 3, this is where things are getting good. If you like what I have to say in my videos, and you have any suggestions that you want me to react to, comment it down below. Like the video, join my channel membership, 99 cents a month. You know, you want to support me. You know, if you genuinely like me, 99 cents a month. Thank you for watching and goodbye.